Well, our special series celebrating Black History Month continues this morning, and once again, I am joined by one of the co-hosts of Outnumbered and the anchor of Fox Weekend Report, Harris Faulkner. She's here to tell us about a legendary entertainer whose influence is still being felt in the industry today.
Well, you know what? This series is so much fun. We kicked it off last week, and now we're really into it. I think you're going to love this one. We're talking, of course, about the one and only Sammy Davis Jr. In his day, he performed in places where blacks couldn't even walk through the front door. But it didn't stop him from becoming one of the greatest showmen ever, who helped pave the way then for generations of performers even today. What was that thing that he had that was so different from everybody else?
I think it was a combination of talent and drive and ambition, but it was the time and the environment that he was in that put it all together.
Growing up in Harlem, Sammy Davis Jr. started performing with his father when he was just 5 years old.
How did he balance going to school?
Never went.
He never went?
No balance necessary. I'm not going.
How did they get around the child labor laws?
I don't know how they did it, but they did come looking for him a few times, and so they just hit him.
Just the vision of someone hiding Sammy Davis Jr.
Well, they billed him as a midget when he was 5. They're like, no kid can do that. Don't you understand?
Wow.
And they were like, oh, I guess so. And that was it.
The most remarkable thing about Sammy Davis Jr. is that his life parallels the entire history of 20th century American show business.
There's a boat that's leaving soon.
Talking about somebody who begins in vaudeville, who winds up in movies on Broadway. You know, he sees everything.
We belong.
Offstage, Sammy was the life of the party, generous to a fault. He spent money almost as quickly as he made it.
What was he like as a person?
He was very, very funny.
Really?
Very funny. He had this way of making you feel like you were just part of the party. If you were with Dad, he made you feel better.
Tracy Davis is Sammy's only biological daughter. Her mother, Swedish actress and model Mai Britt, was her father's second wife. The two met on the lot at 20th Century Fox, where it was love at first sight.
And my dad was going one way, she was going the other, and he turned around and said, "Who's that?" And they said, "Oh, that's that Swedish lady, Mai Britt." And he goes, "I need to have a party." You know, so she's crazy about him. You know, I mean, only my mom could go into a marriage with someone who is black and famous, and it's the 60s, and it's going to be hell, and go like, we can do this.
But it was a different time back then, and many forces were working against them.
Every racial insult that you could possibly imagine was hurled at them.
And then they had Tracy, and somehow it made things worse.
And all these photographers are there, and you can hear everybody yelling, "What color is she? What color is she?"
Oh my God!
You know, but that was some of the stuff that they were yelling because it was a curiosity.
On stage, it was a little easier. People flocked to see Sammy perform, but even in Vegas, a segregated town where he was a star and paid very well, he still came in the back just like every other person of color.
You come through the back, do your thing, can't talk to the audience, can't look at them, you have to look above. So you're not making any eye contact at all. The embarrassing factor of people clapping for you and wanting to come and see you, but we don't want to sit with you. It was very hard.
Did that drive him?
I think it did.
Today, we look at our black stars as the central figures in our popular culture. The hip-hop stars, the African-American actors. They're as big as any white star. Were it not for the Sammy Davis Jr.'s of the world, that would not exist today.
The worst thing for any great showman is to lose his voice. So when Sammy was diagnosed with throat cancer in 1990, the easy treatment option for some became the most difficult of all.
They said, you have a 3 in 10 chance of living if we do radiation, but you will get your voice back.
Okay.
Or a 7 in 10 if we operate, and you might have to have one of those things that you talk through like that. And my dad said, no.
In her latest book, Sammy Davis Jr., A Personal Journey with My Father, Tracy chronicles those final weeks she spent with her father as he lay dying of cancer.
We had the greatest, most awful time of my life, but we talked about everything. I was pregnant with my first child, and the doctors were like, he's not going to make it. And he's like, he puts his hand here over his trach tube. I'm not going anywhere till I see my grandson. Oh. And he did.
3 weeks later, he was there for the birth of his first grandson, Sam, appropriately named after one of the greatest entertainers of his era.
That made my dad so happy. God, if you could have seen his face. He was like, thanks for my gift. And you know, for the man who has everything and what you bring to the party, that was my moment with my dad. That was my moment.
Well, as Sammy Davis Jr. is known for, he would lighten the moment, and Tracy wanted us to do that too. So here's a funny story about her dad. She said after she got married, she walked in and found him watching the movie Father of the Bride very intently. And she asked him, Dad, what are you doing? And he said, I'm studying. She said, you know, it's a movie. And Sammy said, I know, but I don't know my lines. I don't know what my role is here. You see, he traveled and performed so much, it was a little bit difficult for him to just kind of be the family guy. But in the end, Sammy and Tracy grew quite close, as you can see, and he left his mark as a remarkable American. And again, as I always say, this is our shared history. Elizabeth, you brought up a great point as we were watching.
Well, it was such an intimate look and portrait. She said her dad always made things better. He made the industry better. Imagine just being able to celebrate that today, and you've allowed us to do that right now. Thank you for the great work that you do. Oh, incredible, my friend. Next week, you don't want to miss it. Told as a child he might not ever walk, Robert Battle defied the odds and became the artistic director of one of America's most famous dance companies. His incredible story and a special look inside the Alvin Ailey Dance Theater coming for you. That's next Friday at the same time right here on Fox and Friends. Thanks for being with us here, and thank you, Harris.
Absolutely.
Great work.
I can't wait for next Friday.
We'll see you next week.
All right, sounds good.